It's 8:38. Good morning to you. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Anne.
Shall we have a look at what's making the headlines in the papers and online with our headline makers, hubby and wife team that never argue, apparently. GBNEWS' senior political commentator Nigel Nelson and former Conservative advisor Claire Pearsall. Might argue now, though. Never know.
Oh, we might.
Now, I wonder what you think of... we've always wondered, haven't we, how Melania and Donald Trump really get along.
Well, they live in separate houses.
Well, that's right. And what Melania thought of him running for president the first time and then her having to go and live with him in the White House. Not that she did.
Clearly didn't like it.
No, exactly. Well, in the Mail today, or at least online, it's saying that she has quietly renegotiated her prenup agreement with Donald ahead of his bid for a second White House term because she's very worried that her son Barron is only a couple of months away from being 18 now. And she's also very well aware that Donald has very big legal bills to face, which might affect his overall wealth and therefore have a serious effect on her prenuptial agreement, should she ever need it. And so she has renegotiated. I didn't know you could.
No, I didn't know you could either. I mean, Claire didn't ask me for a prenup, so
you fool.
She didn't stop me getting my hands on her wealth.
Oh, yeah. You can keep your books and your toy soldiers, and I'll keep the cats, and, you know, everybody's happy. I don't think we need that written up in...
But you're right, Anna. I had no idea. I thought that these were things set in stone and you couldn't actually go back on them. She's done it 3 times. This is the third time that she's been able to do it.
What, renegotiated?
Yeah, and this particular one for good reason, because it's for their son Barron, who's just about to turn 18, and she wants to get some kind of trust fund for him. I mean, obviously, in a sense, if you're going to do it, she's come at him at the right time. That he's not going to want to get into a long row with her while he's running for president. But I think, Anne, you're absolutely right that she's seeing all his $2.5 billion fortune drift away through legal actions. Yeah, he faces so many lawsuits he's got to defend.
It doesn't bode well for being a happy marriage, does it? I mean, I don't agree with prenups at all.
I think you would if you were marrying Donald Trump. Wouldn't you?
Not if
because
it was...
he's putting the wealth you might think you're marrying into and have every reason to believe you could at least have half of, he could be frittering that away on legal bills that would render your wealth
not if it's a love
negligible.
match. Not if it's a love match.
But I also feel it sort of takes away the feminist power, and this is where I get a little bit sort of, yeah, I do. I'm with you. I think that you go into a marriage and you want the love and affection and all the rest of it. But I think that women who just rely upon a prenuptial agreement to make sure of their status afterwards kind of defeats the purpose that they should be financially secure by themselves and not rely upon a man for it. I mean, you can tell somebody who's been through a very painful divorce and came out with 2 cats and a small child, and that was it. So I think that you need to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. So I can understand why she's done it. But part of me I don't like the idea of these prenuptial agreements where the spouse can say, I'm going to have X, Y and Z out of this afterwards and this amount of money. I think that you need to look at what you bring to this and what you can do to ensure your own security later.
When she married him, she thought she was marrying a businessman. He suddenly, at some point, decided he wanted to run for president.
Was that meant to be a bonus, though?
Well, I don't know. I don't think for her, particularly.
No,
and I can see her thinking, please don't take us into this ridiculous, insane presidential election campaign again. And he's saying, I want to run for president again. I think he has fundamentally, possibly, changed the whole basis of their marriage.
You could see on her face when he was president how much she hated the spotlight, she hated everything that went with the presidency. And I think you're right, that she didn't sign up for that. And suddenly she was plunged into the role of First Lady, which is actually a major role in America. And, you know, really had to start working.
And the scrutiny that went with that role.
And none of which she ever wanted. She wanted to stay in the background. So I can understand her being angry. the marriage doesn't look exactly very close at the moment. They seem to live mostly apart. So you can imagine that she wants to make sure, before the money goes, make sure she's got some of it sort of nailed down.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to criticise her. Claire, can we have a look at The Guardian? Because we've been talking processed foods this morning. The good, the bad, the ugly, but also the cheap, which is why a lot of people are doing it. But there are some scientists who've said ultra-processed foods are just being demonised.
And I can kind of see the point in this. Again, it goes back to a conversation that we had previously about the different foods that are considered to be good, bad, indifferent. And it's interesting with ultra-processed foods because it includes things that are pretty much sort of everyday staples. Things like sausages or ham. Baby formula is considered to be an ultra-processed food. Margarine or certain spreads, those kind of thing, and fruit and flavoured yoghurts. And you sort of think, well, I get it when you're talking about those pre-packaged microwave meals. And yes, I think we all understand that that's not a great thing to live on full-time. But in the cost of living crisis, when people are working maybe 2 or 3 jobs as well and don't have a lot of time to cook something from scratch, you need to be able to have a wide-ranging diet. And it's quite interesting, the piece in The Guardian goes on to explain how a lot of these individuals, these scientists who are putting out the information, are also paid for by a lot of these companies like PepsiCo, Nestle and people like that, who have their own part to play in these dietary choices. So you do sort of think there may be a little bit of scepticism, but there's also no cause and effect given in all of this. Nobody really knows from the evidence given whether people are affected adversely by ultra-processed foods just because they're ultra-processed foods. So it's kind of a bit of a grey area.
Rather if you just eat something with a load of sugar and salt and fat.
Well, I think we all know that that isn't good for you, but, you know, occasionally we will do it. And I think that we need to look at diet in moderation, and you should be able to have little bits of what you choose.
Stop talking sense, Claire.
It's so difficult being moderate, isn't it?
Certainly is.
Honestly.